Whoa, we are back. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Sleeper Colts. Guys, the Colts have officially finished their first preseason game of 2026. With that being said, I wanted to look at some of the performances here from the first tie of the preseason for the Colts and talk about some players who I think helped boost their stock and some players who maybe didn't do any favors for their stock, whether it's guys that are competing for backup positions or more playing time, whatever it is. I wanted to talk about some players that stood out to me and some players that stood out to me in the negative as well. So with that being said, let's hop into it. And I kind of want to start with the negative here. I like to get it out of the way here, and then we can talk about the positive, because I do feel like this was a game where there were a lot more positives than negatives, although the negatives were definitely big negatives. So let's jump into these negatives here. And I think when looking at this backup quarterback position, it was not a good night for Riley Leonard, all things considered. I mean, 10 of 21, threw an interception, didn't have a passing touchdown, a quarterback rating under 40. It was not a great night for Riley Leonard. Now, to any sort of credit of Riley Leonard, I will say he was playing with the third string and was under constant duress, but still did not impress me at all. And it felt like didn't really throw the ball down the field a whole lot. And when he did, he was pretty much off target all day long and just looked out of sorts, out of sync, and looked like he lost some confidence throughout the course of the game. Definitely felt like Riley Leonard took a step back in this quarterback competition after last night and didn't really look like the quarterback that we thought we might see coming into this preseason. And I definitely would say out of the two quarterbacks that played last night, he looked by far as the worst quarterback. So definitely was not inspired by what I saw from Riley Leonard, and hopefully he can rebound. He's going to get an opportunity next Saturday against the Atlanta Falcons to run with the second team offense here. So hopefully that gives him the boost of confidence that he needs, but definitely don't think he did himself any favors after last night's performance in terms of this quarterback competition. So Riley Leonard needs to bounce back, but certainly not a good performance from the second-year quarterback out of Notre Dame. Speaking of some other disappointing performances, I really wasn't super impressed, like I said, with certain guys in that backup third string offensive line. Backup center remains to be a big question for me. Still an issue, had some snap issues still. I mean, Riley Leonard even had snap issues. So that tells me it's more than maybe just a quarterback issue. It might be, we need to figure out a backup center here. And definitely are feeling the loss already of Danny Pinter in free agency. So that's definitely a bummer there. Colts got to figure that out there. And like I said, Ryder was under constant pressure pretty much all night long in that second half. So they got to figure that out. And I think there was a couple players that were pretty much borderline unplayable. So got to figure that out from the offensive line standpoint. I mean, again, a lot of these guys aren't going to play in the regular season, but it was that bad at times where I don't think these guys really deserve to see the field anymore, to be honest with you. I think you can find guys that can play better ball for you. So wasn't really impressed by the offensive line. Really wasn't super impressed with Jaylen Carlies as well, which is a big disappointment. I mean, he's a guy that I really hoped would have a strong performance here, maybe get a sack, get some quarterback hits, but really didn't hear his name outside of maybe one or two tackles, and really didn't, especially in the pass game, didn't really feel his presence a whole lot. So that certainly was disappointing there. Really hoping that he can rebound and, still play a factor in this team, but I definitely wasn't too overblown by what Jaylen Carlies showed. So I'm going to put him for right now into the stock down guys. I really was hoping he would boost his stock and really didn't feel like he did a whole lot there. So that's definitely disappointing from that standpoint. I really think the last thing I'll touch on is that number 4 corner. I really was not impressed by anybody out there, especially the top two guys, Mekhi Blackman and Jonathan Edwards, two guys that I hoped would take leaps this year, and they actually looked worse than they were a year ago, especially Jonathan Edwards. I mean, he was routinely getting beat off the line of scrimmage and was consistently being targeted and harassed by backups. And so when you think about that fourth cornerback position, really for week 1, it's going to be the third cornerback position, right? Because obviously Cam Taylor-Britt right now is that third corner, but he is going to miss the first game due to a suspension. So who is going to be that guy? I don't have confidence that either of those guys right now are fully competent and able to step into that role adequately. I really was disappointed. I mean, out of the two, I think Blackman would be the better player, but he still was not good by any stretch. It just felt like he allowed way too many completions, and it just was not great there from Mekhi Blackman. And Jonathan Edwards, like I said, just an atrocious night. I mean, borderline unrosterable after last night. Now, hopefully he does bounce back, but it was bad. It was bad. Jonathan Edwards was literally food for the opposing offense. It was bad. So was very, very unimpressed by both those corners there. I felt like out of the three corners, Jalen Jones was kind of the best guy out there. Unfortunately, he got injured. Hopefully he's okay. But also we know he's not necessarily a fit in this defense. And so I don't know if there's necessarily a role for him. But right now I feel like it's anybody's game based off of last night. So we'll just have to see what happens at that number 4 corner spot here and that kind of next man up there. I hope it's Jalen Jones because I think he has the most promise out of any of these guys. But yeah, it wasn't great at all there. So the Colts might really seriously need to consider if this continues, looking outside and finding some sort of free agent to bring in because that was really rough. All right, that does it for the duds, though, guys. And really, those duds were so bad, it kind of contributed to pretty much all the negative stuff that happened in this game, right? The passing offense couldn't do anything because Riley Leonard, was under pressure and also couldn't complete a pass seemingly in that second half. And that really led to the Colts offense being stagnant in the second half for the most part. And then, some passes in the early first half, I think contributed to some points there. So that's really it, though, for the negatives. Moving over to the positives, I think there was a lot of positives here. I think the first one you have to point to is Anthony Richardson. And again, not saying Anthony Richardson was perfect because he had 2 turnovers. 1 turnover was not his fault. He threw it in the hands of Coleman Owen. Coleman Owen drops it. It gets picked off. It happens. It's not Anthony Richardson's fault. I really don't know how much of a better ball he could have thrown in that situation. I mean, it literally hit Coleman Owen in the hands here, right? So, I don't put that on Richardson. I put that firmly on Coleman Owen there. But the fumble on the run, certainly, I will put on Anthony Richardson. And that is something he has to eliminate. I was glad to see he didn't have any snap issues, so that was good. But I mean, overall, I would say a really, really positive step for Anthony Richardson. Had some rough stuff early, like his first pass of the night was an underthrow. But after that, I felt like he really, really settled in passing wise. And I felt like he did some really good stuff. Like I said, you were able to see his legs being fully displayed. Obviously had the fumble, but he had a rushing touchdown. Should have had one earlier, but they ruled it down at the 1. But he still showed you why you don't want to give up on him if you can, right? Because he was just he showed some really good stuff, and the dual threat ability it's so nice to have from your quarterback. So I really was impressed by Anthony Richardson all the way around, in this game. And 80 quarterback rating certainly was better than Riley Leonard, 11 of 14, had some nice passes downfield. So I came away overall a lot more impressed with Anthony Richardson than I did with Riley Leonard. So right now, based off of week 1, I would say Anthony Richardson is your backup guy right now. So especially, if something happens to Daniel Jones throughout the course of the season, and if this continues, Anthony Richardson would be the guy up there with the starters. So I was impressed with what I saw from AR, but again, we still have a couple more weeks. Riley Leonard's going to get an opportunity next week, and maybe that flip-flops. Who knows? But strictly after week 1, Anthony Richardson was the better quarterback. So we'll just have to see if that continues, guys. But I was really impressed by Anthony Richardson. I was also really impressed by McGowan. I really felt like Seth McGowan did some really nice things running the football. He should have had a rushing touchdown. The referees pretty much stole that from him. So he technically had a fumble, but even though the box score won't show this, I really thought that Seth McGowan ran well yesterday, and I thought he had some really nice runs there in that first half, and it felt like after the fumble, the Colts didn't really give him any more opportunities running the football. But it was interesting as well because I got to see a little bit of Seth McGowan in the return game, which we haven't seen a whole lot of from that standpoint. So that was kind of fascinating here, but I really like Seth McGowan as a back. I've always said it ever since he's been drafted. I feel like he's a lot more talented than when he got drafted, and so he's already shown it. And right now, I think it's clear that Seth McGowan is that running back too. And I think with the way that he runs, people have compared it to Zach Moss, David Montgomery, a couple comparisons there. And I think that's a nice compliment to what the Colts do with Jonathan Taylor here. I mean, we saw back in 23 when Taylor and Moss were back there, that was one of the best duos in the NFL. So hopefully McGowan can be that here for Jonathan Taylor, take some carries off of his plate and still be efficient running the football. That would certainly be a big step there. But I came away very impressed by Seth McGowan overall and really liked what I saw from him. Now, another player on offense and a guy that I think a lot of fans before this game had kind of forgotten about. He was kind of buried on the depth chart, but Will Mallory showed out. He had a fantastic performance here on Thursday Night Football. He, in my opinion, was the best player on offense. I mean, he really was very impressive all day long. And it felt like whenever a quarterback needed him, specifically Richardson in that first half, they found Will Mallory, and he showed his ability as a receiver. He finished with a very good performance, 6 catches for 80 yards, led the team in receptions, led the team in yards. And I really hope the Colts are able to find some sort of role for Will Mallory. I mean, he's a little bit of an undersized tight end. I don't know how much he helps you in the blocking game, but his ability as a receiver, I mean, outside of Warren, obviously, he is by far the best receiving tight end you have on your roster. So I hope the Colts will find a role for him because he's kind of buried right now in this depth chart. But I think in special packages, you need to use his receiving ability, especially his vertical ability, because he's also like very elusive. He had a couple times where he was making defenders miss. He can find those extra yards that you need. So I think you need to find a way to get Will Mallory involved this year in the passing attack for sure. So I really was impressed with what Will Mallory did, and I'm glad he got an opportunity to showcase that because I've always been a fan of Will Mallory ever since you drafted him out of Miami a couple years ago. So really was impressed by him overall. Thought he did a great job. I also thought Jalen Farmer, the rookie, did a really good job, all things considered. I mean, this guy just looks the part. I mean, he is just a tank of a human being. He looks like a Tony Sperano offensive lineman. He's an absolute mauler, and it was good to see him get some really nice reps in this game. So really liked what I saw, all things considered, from Jalen Farmer. Now, flipping over to the defensive side of things, I really was impressed with a lot of those young defensive linemen outside of Tui Mulawau. I was impressed by Kaden Curry. I was impressed by George Gumbs, both guys that were taken in day 3. Both guys had a sack. Kaden Curry led the team in tackles. He had a sack, like I said, also had 2 pass deflections, 2 tackles for loss. He was everywhere. He was absolutely dominating. Again, it was against the threes, but still, like, he was absolutely dominating. Gumbs looked a lot better than I thought he was going to look, especially as a guy that's as raw as he is. So I was impressed by that. And another player that I was really impressed by, and I think we don't talk about enough, is Adetomiwa Adebawore. And it won't show up on the stat sheet, but he was absolutely wrecking the Patriots backfield every time, seemingly, there was a pass down. He was a menace for this Patriots offensive line. So I really think that he's set for a big role here, and I hope the Colts find ways on third downs and obvious pass situations to really get Adetomiwa some reps, because I think he's one of the most underrated pass rushers on this team. And especially when there's question marks at the other defensive end position, I really think you need to give Adetomiwa some reps here getting after the quarterback, because in my opinion, outside of DeForest Buckner, he is clear-cut the best pass rusher in the interior. So you need to figure out a way to get him as many reps as you possibly can here at that 3 tech, getting after the quarterback, or wherever you want to put him. It doesn't really matter to me. Like, just utilize him, utilize his ability. He's a little undersized, but he's got some elite speed and elite burst, and I think you can't afford to put that on the sideline. So Adetomiwa, absolute menace. Love to see what I saw from the rookies. Also love to see what I saw from the linebackers. I mean, you had 3 linebackers that were rotating in, and all 3 made plays. I mean, Bryce Boettcher, obviously, he's the guy that you want to talk about, the 4th-round rookie. He had some nice moments. It was great to see him really do, some good stuff there, which I thought was awesome. I got to see, obviously, Jaylen Carlies make some good plays, which is very encouraging to see. Also, Austin Ajiake had some really nice moments as well. All these linebackers were flying all over the field, and we know the Colts made a concerted effort this offseason to get younger and faster, and we really saw that on display against the New England Patriots. So I was very impressed by what I saw from all these linebackers here, And that's without your second round pick, EJ Allen, even out there. So I'm really happy with how the linebackers look right now. Sure, they're young, but I was really impressed with the fact that they were, running from sideline to sideline, making plays, making tackles, making plays in coverage. They really did a great job overall. So I'm excited. I hope that continues for these linebackers. That was pretty much it. I would say the kicking position is still something that I am very intrigued with because Spencer Shrader, he had one of those nights similar to Anthony Richardson where he needed a night like that. I mean, he connected on both his field goals, a 45-yarder and a 61-yarder, which is a career long, especially coming off that injury that he suffered last year at the beginning of the year in the middle, right after that Raider game. So I am really excited for Spencer Shrader. Now, again, I don't know if it necessarily moves the competition at all, but I think it certainly gives a shot of confidence to Spencer Shrader in this kicking battle. I mean, Blake Grupe, he missed a 61-yarder, not for a lack of leg, just a little bit right. But again, it's a 61-yard field goal that he misses, so I'm not going to necessarily hold that against him there, but it was certainly great to see Spencer Shrader doing some nice things. Both these kickers, I think, are more than capable of being really good kickers at the NFL level. So I am very interested to see how this battle continues to go on. I mean, if you're strictly looking from camp and things like that, Blake Grupe still has a pretty wide lead. We'll see if Spencer Shrader is able to close the gap at all based off of what happened last night, and maybe he gets more confidence here in the next couple of weeks, and maybe it's a tighter competition again. But certainly, just even if it doesn't happen, I was really happy for Spencer Shrader. Other than that, that really does it for this one. Preseason 1 is in the books here for the Colts, and we'll have to see what happens next week against the Atlanta Falcons on Saturday. We're going to see Riley Leonard with the starters, and we're going to have to see exactly what happens with certain players or some other players who, didn't really have good games. Are they going to bounce back? And are some players who are coming off good performances? How will they follow that up? I'm very intrigued about all that. But other than that, guys, that'll do it for this one. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, but that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much. And as always, guys, have a good one.